What's up, everybody? So it's been a little bit since I've done a video, and that's partially or mostly due to the fact that slideshow rambles were a thing that I really enjoyed doing and really worked well for what I wanted to ramble about. And not every video can work like this here. So I'm trying to figure out what I can do until I get the ability to make slideshow rambles again. If anybody knows of any program out there that works, that is either cheap or free, that I could do and use to make a bunch of still images and audio come together for a slideshow, let me know. But until then, I want to do this little bit of an update ramble here for this model. This is the Necron Immortal test model that was previously seen as partially silver blotchy because I couldn't get all the paint to strip off of it. And I've made some progress, even though I did relatively little painting on it. Probably a total of 15 to 20 minutes, including drying times. And I got the model to this step here. Now, I didn't do much, but I think I made a pretty significant step forward with the model. And that got me thinking about what I could ramble about, aside from just plan of attack. So I want to give you my plan of attack for this model, the idea I have for doing, or what I want to do to this model from this point on with it. But on top of that, I also want to go over a couple of things, including priming a model or a piece of a model that you did some conversion to help you see it better, bases, and time painting and all that. So this is going to be kind of a long-winded ramble and just some things for the hobby. And the first thing I want to talk about is time spent painting, because I'm in a bit of a painting slump for this hobby. I have really little drive to do painting or collecting in the hobby right now. And that's due to a multitude of factors, and it happens. So you don't freak out about it. It's going to happen to nearly every hobbyist out there, and if it doesn't, you're one of the lucky ones, I guess. So, with that said, being in a painting slump means that when you get inspiration, I should say, to paint, and you have the ability to do so, meaning you're not out somewhere, you're by your paints and you could do it, you take that opportunity. So you never want to force it, but when you feel the urge strike you, you want to act on it for as long as you feel the urge. And that's what I did, and it's around 15-20 minutes worth, and that's partially due to the fact that, due to two things. A, I got to a certain point, and then I wanted to stop and think about exactly what I wanted to do next. And B, I was watching a movie, and I got caught up in the movie. So, either way, for around 15-20 minutes worth of time, which anybody in the hobby really could find at some point during a week or a month, right? Still made decent progress. And that's the key. Momentum, progress, keeping it going. When you have the time to paint, when you realize you have some free time and the urge strikes you to paint, don't talk yourself out of it. We're really good as human beings at talking ourselves into or out of nearly anything. So, if you have the urge and the will and the capability to paint, go for it a little bit. You'll make progress in 10, 15, 20 minutes of painting total. Combine that, or times that I should say, over multiple times this happens, you get two things happening. Progress in your army, and more inspiration to slowly pull yourself out of that painting slump. So that's always good. Now, with that said, that's what I did, and I got around 15-20 minutes done, and I got most of the Necron's base color basically finished, and that's not a bad step forward. So whatever you do, it could be partially assembling your model or fully assembling your model from the sprue, if that's how you want to paint it. Getting it ready for paint, that's progress where there wouldn't have been any. Getting the primer coat down and maybe a base color down, progress where there wouldn't have been any if you didn't have the inspiration. You know what I mean? Over time, that leads to models being done and more inspiration, so just keep that in mind. I'm not saying force yourself. The last thing you want to do is force yourself, because then it'll feel like a chore and you'll resist it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I want to go over before plan of attack is this bit here. This hand and blade came from that weapon because it's supposed to go together. The arms are supposed to hold the weapon together, both arms holding it up, and the blade's on the bottom of it. But I want to repose it a bit, and I want to make this arm look interesting. So they don't have a close combat weapon, but who cares? It looks cool. And with that said, when I did the copper on the hand and arm, it made it come together and I had a better sense of what it's going to look like when finished. And that got me thinking about more complex stuff out there. Now, if you do green stuff sculpting at all, or gap filling, or doing stuff with green stuff on top of plastic card and other kit bashing components, and maybe even using some paper clips or thin copper tubing or whatever the case may be, to scratch build a spear, a gun, a sword, a piece of a tank, whatever it is, that's cool, and more power to you. But you can be a little bit confused on exactly what you need to do next. If you need to add anything, or maybe try and take something away. Because you're looking at plastic, green stuff, metal, potentially resin or pewter as well, all together in one area, and it can be confusing to look at. So hit it with a primer coat at the very least. This was easy because it all came from the same model and wasn't that confusing, but still hitting it with the copper really cleared things up. So hitting it with a primer coat at the very least takes away all the different looking stuff and leaves you with the thing you created. And that can really help you determine if you have to add rivets, let's say, or maybe you're good to go. So that's something to keep in mind. And lastly, bases. Now this base I chose because it was convenient, because I had this base at this step for a while now, and also it works for what I want to do for this model, which is kind of a jungle-esque base, and this is a good platform for that. And that got me thinking about how when I started this hobby, I treated bases as an afterthought, and therefore they felt kind of chore-like. But bases are essential, in my opinion, for really completing a model. In my opinion, a model is not truly done until it's sitting on, standing on, kneeling on, whatever it is, a fully painted base. Then the model's complete. And that's because the base does such a huge part in providing that illusion that we're not just looking at plastic, pewter, or resin models, but we're looking at a battlefield. And when you combine that with a fully painted and put together scenery piece for terrain, and have a fully done terrain with fully done models on their fully done bases, it's really cool. Even if the bases and the terrain don't match up, it's still really cool. So, what I used to do was I used to paint the models, and I used to associate a completed model with being done, forgetting about the bases. And then I would have squads of bases that I have to do at once. And that felt kind of chore-like and annoying. So one day I decided I'm going to do the bases first. I'm going to do my plan of attack for bases the way I like to paint, which is models separate from bases and models not fully assembled. And so in doing the bases first, I got a sense of accomplishment and completion right then and there with these bases being done. And then once models were completed, I could just glue them right to the base and they were good to go. I evolved that by stating to myself, if I'm going to have static grass or other foliage on the base, I'm going to get the base fully painted into a step where all I have to do is add the foliage. I'll glue the model down when it's completed, then add the foliage, then the base will be done. And that's kind of my process. The other way that people do things is they take the model, partially or fully assembled, however they paint it, and they glue it on the base once the base has the stuff on it, or before the base has the stuff on it, whatever. And then they get the base ready to be painted, and they paint the base and the model together. And that's really good too, because you can't forget the base at that point. I'm just too much of a messy painter when it comes to doing that. There would be too much touch-up work for me to do, so I do it separately. But whatever floats your boat. Just don't forget about your base. It really lends a lot of weight to the model looking finished. So with that said, my plan of attack for this model, as you can see, is a copper main color for the Necrons. I'm doing it pristine, because I don't feel like the Necrons are actually copper. I'm looking at them as the fact that they are looking copper to our human eyes and our human understanding of color and whatnot. But in actuality, they're living metal Necron bodies with probably some exotic alloy or element that is added to that, which makes their bodies a pure copper in color. So that's why I'm not doing a verde gris on them. You could if you want to, and that would work just fine. I want them to look pristine, albeit ancient. So what I did is a black wash on the copper. And from there I'm going to touch it up so it looks pristine again, but you still have the washes and the recesses for shading. And that's basically copper done. As a secondary color, I'm going to do a really dark gray, nearly black for the Necron Immortal shoulders, for the weapon, and other parts of other models potentially in the future if I were to continue this on. And a third color, very light here and there, is going to be silver for like the Ankh on their torso and stuff like that. Silver pops out nicely on copper, gold kind of gets muted. So that's something to consider as well if you're going to go copper for anything. And lastly, what I want to do is the classic Necron green energy for the eyes, for the weapon, and so forth. I don't want it to be glowing because of what I want to do with the base and the model itself, but I want it to be obvious that there's green there, that it is a glow, quote unquote, without being object source lighting, super crazy glow that reflects off stuff, if that makes any sense, because I don't want to do that for several reasons. So that's the idea for the model in its entirety. I'm going to glue it to the base in some way. I don't know which way yet. And then I'm going to add foliage to the base. And I want to do some moss and vine-like effect on certain areas of the model. The main goal is to make this model feel ancient, yet alien. So I wanted it to feel the alien part by feeling ancient but not being weathered and haggard looking, still looking pristine. But I wanted it to feel ancient in the fact that it's been dormant for millennia, eons, in the same place, on some planet, or planet-like thing, because I do have a whole kind of idea fluff-wise for these guys. And wouldn't you know it, they were partially overgrown. Them, their vehicles, everything like that. But when it came time to reactivate, they reactivate and they press on without cleaning themselves up because whatever, right? The killing has to be done. They don't care about some moss or some vine still hanging on to them. And that's the idea behind it. So that's what I'm looking to do. I don't know how well it's going to work. I got to test that theory out. But the idea would be to tie the model and the base together with some moss and vine-like effects on the model and the base. I think that will look pretty cool. Anyways, that's pretty much it for my plan of attack for the model. That's some things to consider while painting. Remember, if you find yourself in a painting slump but have the inspiration to paint, go for it. Don't talk yourself out of it. Progress is always good. Momentum forward is always good. And that can lead to you eventually coming out of that painting slump as you get more and more inspiration from seeing more and more progress. And if you're going to kit bash and whatnot, really before you make a final judgment call, hit it with a bit of primer so you're not being distracted by stuff. I think that can help too. And that's really it. So hopefully you enjoyed this long-winded ramble. And if I make some more progress on this Necron at any point, and I plan to at some point, I'll do a little update, kind of talk about what I did, what I discovered, and what I maybe have changed or not changed. So that will come in the future. Anyways, thanks for sticking through it, and until next time, take it easy.